Welcome in to Bears Weekly, powered by IGS Energy, a Chicago Bears network production. Bears Weekly is brought to you by Advocate Healthcare, Athletico Physical Therapy, CDW, Connie's Pizza, IGS Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Yet another milestone reached in the Bears offseason with the opening of rookie minicamp tomorrow. The 2025 class of 8 draft picks and collection of undrafted players and minicamp invitees will look to impress Ben Johnson and his coaching staff and start to acclimate in the Bears way for this day and beyond. Welcome into Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Chicago Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. We're joined by former Bears quarterback Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio. My name is Jeff Joniak. Coming up in the program, we visit with another Bears second-round draft pick. My sit-down with offensive lineman Azie Trapilo. Gentlemen, how are we feeling? Tom from Maui, what's the latest from your perspective? Wish you were here for minicamp and see the young guys. Seen them walking through the building. They look like pros already, Tommy.
Yeah, I've kind of probably been in the minority. I never have been a really big fan of rookie mini camps, but I think this year, unlike any others, it's really going to play an important role in the development of the roster. Because first of all, the assistant coaches get a chance to get to know each other and coaching from the meeting room to on the practice field, and then you finally get an on-field evaluation of how these guys are fitting into the positions.
All right, so Tom's having some technical problems. We'll get to him in a minute. Jimmy, you can pick it up from there on the baton. Yeah, they get to get on the field, get on the grass a little bit, stretch their legs out, learn the basics, right? Literally where you're going to run to during drills, how they work, and just the techniques and fundamentals. Jim? All right.
I believe you got me, don't
okay,
you? Okay,
there
me,
you
Jeff?
go. Yeah, there you go.
Here.
There you go. There you go.
I'm
there
here,
you go,
my friend. But, yeah, I think a lot is going to be thrown at these guys, and it's not just from the football side. It's how to be a pro, what they expect of you, how to conduct yourself as a Chicago Bear. So there are rules of what it means to be a Chicago Bear. Everybody just thinks, oh, you're drafted by the National Football League and you're fined by the National Football League and all these things that they're in charge of. No, they work for the Chicago Bears organization. And the Bears have their way of doing things, and there's going to be introduced to the expectations from that standpoint. Obviously, the tradition, the history, all those things, getting to know your fellow co-workers, and it's not just your teammates. It's everybody in the building there in Chicago. And then, of course, comes the football side of it and getting introduced to whatever side of the ball they're playing on. What's expected there, where you line up, here's your playbook, here's what expected, here's your itinerary, got to show up on time, got to be on time, here's here's our install, here's how we conduct these meetings, and it's going to be at a pretty rapid pace. And I think for some players, obviously everybody learns at a different rate, and you try to adjust and all those things, but there's a lot coming at these young players, and I'm certainly for Ben Johnson, he wants it very competitive. Certainly there's so many things that you can scout. Granted, they scouted these players enough to be on the Chicago Bears football team, but the scouting just starts right now as well. Every day that they're a Chicago Bear, they're going to be scouted. Hey, man, how did this player perform today? They're going to get graded out on every single play from the first one to the last one in every single practice. Are you getting better? Are you getting worse? Does a player understand it? All those coaches, after a day of practice, they're down in those meeting rooms saying, hey, how did so-and-so do today? What were you looking at? How did he perform? And they're discussing all these things. And then, of course, the next day, more is added, and then more is added, and more is added. So it's a foundation, and then you just continue to build that foundation every single day, and more is going to be expected every single day. And so it will become routine, and it will become rote memory is the goal. And for these players to all improve to what? To win a championship. It starts now. It truly does start now. It already started with all the scouting that went on and knew who they drafted. But this is the team, and these players are going to have to compete from here on out. And there will still be players that come and go. I think everybody's aware of that as well, to make it as competitive as it can be for the Chicago Bears, because they have work to do in order to be relevant in the division of the NFC North.
And they are already here tonight in meetings. I see them going to meetings, so getting the rundown right now. Tom's on the phone now. I think about Ben Johnson, Tom, and his mentality and what he wants to establish here, this competitive mindset, this competitive attitude. I think he will vet a lot of things out on that practice field, no matter what they're doing, just to find out, like, what's the floor of each player, where they got to go to reach the level he expects in terms of effort and understanding. And that includes the tryout candidates, who are going to be just wide-eyed and bushy-tailed because they don't have a contract yet. Some guys have been signed here today. Undrafted guys signed. We'll go through those in a minute. But I really get a kick out of watching the guys who got the invite to fill out what you basically have 40 guys running around here to have drills properly, having numbers. But some of those guys, they might get an invitation to make this football team and go to training camp at a minimum.
Jeff, there's not one guy that's going to walk in the building and you're going to tell him he doesn't deserve to be here. Every one of these guys are just going to start scratching the surface of maybe creating an opportunity for themselves here or even somewhere else. But, I always find it interesting for the guys that may have to play a little bit different of a position than they're going to get honestly evaluated at from college. Whether it's a guy Trapilo, they want to see if he.
All right, Tom's having.
Lineman.
Okay. All right, we're having more technical problems with Tom, so we'll get back to him after the break. Numbers have been given to these players, Jim. So number 84 will be your first-round pick, Colston Loveland. Number 65, Luke Newman. Number 25, Kyle Monangai. And Luther Burden III will be number 87. This is at least for starters, Jim. Those numbers could change over the course of the season. Those gentlemen signing contracts with the Bears already. Also, Zay Frazier, number 20, and Ruben Hippolyte, number 47. Shamar Turner and Azie Trapilo, 95 and 75 each. They have yet to be signed. And then the undrafteds. A couple of interesting, you got another kicker in camp in Jonathan Kim out of Michigan State. You probably know all about him. You're a Michigan State guy. And then a long snapper also to help out. You need those guys. I know they have that position signed, but Luke Elkin from Iowa is highly respected long snapper and somebody that Tory Taylor knows from the punting game at Iowa.
Yeah, I think, and that's why I said guys are still going to be coming and going. I mean, this roster is not set. It is going to be fluid. That's why, the coach talked about that everything's got to be earned. There's no depth chart, right? That's what Ben Johnson talked about. And there isn't a depth chart. I mean, they truly need to be competing. And like I said, players, from my standpoint, players will be coming and going pretty fluidly in Chicago because it hasn't been good enough. So if players aren't keeping up with, say, their study habits or how they're performing even out there in the OTAs, no different than Pete Carroll did. Like I said, his first 2 years out at Seattle, they had 236 roster changes. Okay, so Pete Carroll's like, all right, we need to fix, say, our edge rushers. Well, this guy's struggling. We need to get another guy in here. So to me, that roster is going to be very fluid for the Bears. There will be guys coming and going. Yes, these players are chosen initially that we think you are good enough to be a part of the Chicago Bears organization and what we have planned moving forward. But it's not with an exclamation point or a period like that's final right now, because it's not. Right. Because the winning hasn't been there. So it is not complete yet, and it will be fluid all the way up through training camp.
All right, when we come back, we'll visit with one of the new Chicago Bears, a guy who's going to get a lot of attention once training camp hits as well, Azie Trapilo, the second-round pick from Boston College. It's coming up next here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network.
This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak, on the Bears Radio Network.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy. Right after he was selected in the second round by the Chicago Bears and arrived at Hal, I saw Ozzy Trapilo kind enough to sit down to discuss the next phase of his football life because just because you go through the combine, have a great career at college, at Boston College, the work now just getting underway as he walked into Hallis Hall admiring all the history in the building.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to fall into that trap that, like you just said, I've been training for the combine, for the draft, getting ready. In perspective, it seems like that's the end of my goal, the short term at least, but it's really the beginning. And showing up here, seeing all the walls, seeing it, everything that everyone's done in the history of this place is truly incredible. And it just kind of reminds me this is just the start.
Being a top 64 pick in a draft is significant. I know everybody wants to be a first-round pick, but emotion-wise, when you got the call from Ryan Poles, had a chance to visit with him on the phone, a BC guy himself, and then, of course, the head coach, Ben Johnson. How did you accept all of that conversation? What were you thinking in the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I was at a loss for words. To be honest, I still am. It doesn't feel real yet, adrenaline pumping. I mean, like I mentioned, all of my dreams, my whole life, as long as I can remember, are coming true. As we speak, it's all unfolding right in front of me. So it's truly an amazing experience, and I'm super fired up about it.
And obviously, it's not possible to bring up your late father, also a draft pick of the New Orleans Saints back in 1987 draft, out of BC, pick 96. How does your family and yourself digest that and process that?
Yeah, I mean, I know for me personally, it's really cool to be able to accomplish the same goals that he did. Play in the NFL. That's always been my dream. So for him to do that, sort of lead the way, and then obviously go through that tragedy when I was at a young age, to be able to live that same life is really amazing. I know my mom, is very proud of me. She lets me know all the time, and I'm super thankful for her. I have no doubt I wouldn't be here if it wasn't, for her by my side throughout the whole process. So great family, unreal support system. I'm super lucky back home, and yeah, everyone's excited.
You're probably 11. What would he be thinking right now?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the part of it that's cool. And how about it? Ryan Poles' father played with him.
I know. I actually didn't even, I had no idea until I got on that phone. And again, I was at a loss for words, heart pumping, everything's happening right in front of me. But when he said that, it was like, it was very cool to hear that, so super happy.
How significant is it, in your opinion, that you played for, it turns out to be two head coaches, two significant coaches in the National Football League? One was Bill O'Brien, he was a head coach, but also Jeff Hafley up in Green Bay, a defensive coordinator, was your head coach for a while.
Yeah, no, they did a great job. I've been really lucky with coaches. BC has done a great job, with their coaching staff, and the coaching staff has done a great job with all the guys. So having Coach Haff and Coach O'Brien, through my time there was incredibly beneficial. The way they coached, the way they communicated with us, the way that things were scheduled, it really, I think, prepared me for this level. And yeah, I'm thankful for it.
And you get to see Coach Haff twice a year now.
Yeah.
In the biggest rivalry in sports.
Yep.
How weird is that, right?
Yeah, full circle.
How do you see your traits and skills fitting the culture that you're hearing that Ben Johnson is building here?
Yeah, I mean, I pride myself on toughness and discipline. Those are two things that I think I really try to take to my game, take to every practice, every snap, on and off the field. So having the ability to do that here, I met with him earlier, and he said those are two things that they're looking for in their linemen. So I'm really excited to just go out there and demonstrate that, I can be a help to this team.
What do you feel when you meet him for the first time? Because he's a ball of energy.
Yeah, no, it was great. Again, the emotions they're still floating around. I'm in a whirlwind. I'm trying to get my footing, but it's been an amazing visit so far. Just meeting all the people, seeing what the future is going to hold is really exciting.
Smart, tough, dependable. I hear that from Coach O'Brien, and that's definitely what we're hearing here. You check all those boxes. How important is that to you to know that people look at you that way?
Yeah, that it's I'm very proud of that. I think going through BC, having these people with the resumes that don't lie, like you touched upon earlier, and they say those things about me is really incredible. I'm super happy about it, and yeah.
Do you believe that you're a tone setter when you play?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say it's unique, but I definitely don't let my emotions get the best of me on the field. I try to play composed at all times, but doing so, stay disciplined, stay technique oriented, and then go out there and accomplish the goal. So
I understand you were being trained a little bit with Dante Scarnecchia. His name is, a religion in the National Football League, certainly out there. What was that like? What'd you learn from him in this process?
Yeah, I mean, he's, his resume doesn't lie. He's an incredible coach. Always will be. He'll never lose that aspect of him. So being able to work with him and other guys, specifically ones at BC, over the years, it's been amazing. Seeing the way he coaches, seeing the way he talks to his players, seeing him off the field, when you're walking in, small talk, conversation, great guy, and then he flips that switch and he's in coach mode, and it's really incredible. So I'm super fortunate to have been able to work with him, and yeah.
Are you also taking a look at what else has been brought in here? Colston Loveland, for one, Luther Burden. I mean, these are big names, guys that had great careers, great prospects. Yourself, Ozzy, added to Roma Dunze, Caleb Williams last year. Do you feel the energy brewing in this building just from what they're bringing in?
Absolutely. I think it's hard not to. As soon as you walk in, you see things like you just mentioned, the new, the people coming in. And you can tell there's something special being built for the future of this place, and it's exciting.
All right. There's always challenges when you're a 6'8" offensive lineman, right?
Yeah.
And you know what they are. So
Yeah.
Tell me, how do you bridge that gap? Just because you can't help it, you're 6'8",
yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is one of the tougher things of being taller. It has its pros and it has its cons. So doing my best to play in a good position for 100% of the game, good pad level, good footing, always under control, balanced. Those are all things that if I lack, people are going to be able to take advantage of that more than a guy who's shorter than me, just because I don't have any of that natural leverage. I have to maintain that through my playing style. So,
but the traits you do have, what would you say people should know about you that Bears fans want to know? What's Azie Trapilo like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 6'8", so that helps. Minus the cons that I just mentioned, it has its pros. Being, you're a longer guy, able to keep guys off you. People always talk about the arm length, so that is just a natural benefit that I was given through genetics. So thanks to my family for that one. But no, yeah, and I think the athletic standpoint too. I think I'm a well-rounded player. I don't really fit one scheme or the other. I think I can do a multitude of things. So I'm excited.
All right. So everybody dreams big. Clearly, you've been dreaming this for a long time. Are you open about your goals, or do you keep those close to the vest and just let them play out, or are you a guy with the sticky notes on the mirror every morning? What kind of goal-oriented person are you?
Yeah, I'd say I keep them close. They're for me. They're not for anybody else. You know what I mean? That's what drives me. So they're ever changing. As this was obviously one of them. So now that this is accomplished, we move on to the next ones, and it's really exciting.
All right, Azie Trapillo, great young man to talk to. Tom and Jim rejoining us. Ryan Poles really likes the fact that what he sees on tape is play personality, his individual personality, his intelligence, his dependability, as we touched on, all what it is supposed to be based on how they analyzed him and scouted him, and he gets a really good vibe of just how big of a man he is filling up a doorway. So I also joked with him, Tommy, afterwards that he has a permanent smile on his face. So, I don't know if it was just this moment, but he's just a delightful young man and a heck of a football player.
It's definitely the moment, because he's talked about that a couple of times, but he does sound mature beyond his years. He's the type of guy that gives thoughtful, creditable answers that when you went out and picked Azie Trapilo, that you had a well-rounded football player. Like he said, he can do multiple things on the line of scrimmage. You're not going to have to worry about him not being on time or not doing the things that's asked of him. He's an intelligent kid. He's going to be able to absorb all the assignments and the terminology that's required of him. So I think probably as much as anybody in the draft, I'm really excited to see what he can do and where he can compete on the offensive line. And that's what I was talking about, the rookies. Some of these guys that are playing a couple different positions, and they got to have that judgment on how they, can move around different stances, different balances and stuff, how it'll affect them. So I'm looking forward to watching them work.
Jim, very self-aware, even that, a lot of people answer that height question in different ways. He handles it straight on. I really appreciated that answer.
Yeah, one, he's a tough guy. He can be a swing tackle, can play both right and left. he is well coached. I believe Doug Marrone was there with Bill O'Brien. He started out as the O-line coach before. Now he moved on, I believe, to New England with Mike Vrabel. But Doug Marrone knows a thing or two about O-line coach. But I talked to Bill O'Brien personally about Ozzy. He's a tough football player and a good football player. And so minimum, I think the Bears fans should, if he were called into duty to play week 1, he is not going to embarrass himself at all. A highly competitive, big guy who can play and offer position flexibility. So he's going to be a good football player. I really believe that.
And Tommy is going to get a chance to battle for that starting job at left tackle right out of the gate with Braxton Jones and whomever else will compete for that position.
Yeah, you definitely have a different template size than Amagaji does, but I think they both offer their own types of assets. And like Jim said, his versatility is not exclusive to the tackle position. If you find yourself needing depth at both right and left guard, that gives you more value on game day activity. I think that he's going to be an experimental piece up and down the line of scrimmage, and I keep talking about Ben Johnson and his use of multiple offensive linemen, that he could fit into that role as well. So I'm excited to see where he's going. I'm excited to see the competitiveness that he's going to add to every offensive line position. And, I think we'll kind of get a feel of what his capabilities are after a rookie minicamp.
Well, it's kind of an interesting story when they meet the Packers because he was Jeff Hatley's #1 recruit in his 2020 class at Boston College. Now he gets to face that defense twice a year up in Green Bay. All right, when we return, we'll discuss more about the upcoming minicamp, tell you who they signed in the undrafted world as well, and tackle some other issues around the National Football League with Jim Miller and Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak, and this is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 and the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Jeff Joniak, Tom Thayer, Jim Miller, as we're breaking things down here for Bears Weekly this week, and we got the rookie minicamp getting underway officially tomorrow. Media will get in here, so we'll start hearing from some of the rookies again. Guys, like I alluded, only a 10-member undrafted class, which speaks to the depth already of the roster that Ryan Poles has put together over the now 4 years. But a couple of names that could draw some attention. The 2 wide receivers, I think I mentioned him last week, John Richardson out of TCU, and wide receiver Ja'Day Walker out of Texas A&M, a couple of guys. And then Xavier Carlton, he's a transfer from Utah. He went to Cal, nearly 6'6". He played defensive end and defensive tackle. Jim knows everybody, so maybe he knows all about this guy. But he ran a 5.09 40 at 273. He's got 35-inch arms and 85 and an eighth-inch wingspan. So, Jimmy, he's a long defender. That's a guy to keep an eye on, too.
Yeah, and well, like you said, for all these guys, they're getting an opportunity, and you'd be shocked at, say a team like the Rams. Some teams have had up to 5 undrafted free agents make their team. And again, when you're not winning a lot, and I think if you're a player that has an opportunity to choose your own place where you want to sign, to me, Chicago would be attractive, and you'd want to sign because you're going to try and put yourself in the best opportunity because you feel you can make the team because the winning hasn't been so good. And Ben Johnson's already opened up the door about, hey, depth charts here. This will be highly competitive. So it doesn't matter if you're, the highest paid guy on the team or the last guy that just signed. You feel like you're going to get a true evaluation and be judged honestly for coming in here to compete. And you'd like to think that you would control that if you have that opportunity. So I would think the numbers are in your favor. That's why guys would want to sign with a team like Chicago, because they think they're going to get a legit, honest shot. And I think they will. And all those undrafted free agents, they're going to have their reps. Maybe that's not as much as the other guys who were drafted or before them in this class, or other guys that have been signed via free agents due to their paycheck. But I do think this, when their reps do come, they will be honestly evaluated, and if they show their wares, they will have a good opportunity to make the team. I really believe that.
You know what's going to be – I'm sorry, Jim. You know what's going to be cool, too, about the rookie minicamp is they have a couple of unique body styles. And you have to look at guys that have the length at defensive end, have that length at defensive backfield. And if they're able to switch those lengthy assets into really being a really good football player. And I think when we look at Azie Trapilo, this free agent defensive end is a perfect guy to go against him when the pads are on one-on-one. Because you talk about length as an asset as an offensive lineman. There's always length there's also length as an asset as defensive linemen throughout the course of history. And so if you can take and you have some instinctual get off from the line of scrimmage, if you have the ability to rush with straight arms and separate yourself from any controlling offensive lineman, I think that's kind of the neat thing every year in the NFL is someone comes across the board that's always small and faster than you can catch, or big, and you don't really take his measurables into account depending upon the position he's playing.
All right, one of the best names, and we've had a Major Wright on the Bears. We've got Major Burns now from LSU, a transfer from Georgia. Yeah, MASH, Frank. Transfer from Georgia, but he's a big, strong safety, 6'2", 207, and 37.5 vertical jump, ran a 4.53. And that's a position that I guess you can never have enough bodies either at the safety position. Thought it was interesting. I read a quote from the Baltimore Ravens general manager who does a great job drafting, and he loads up on the secondary every year because he says that's the first place you get beat in a football game. I don't know if you share that same philosophy because you can get beat many ways, but it caught my attention because they drafted Malachi Starks. They, of course, have that Pro Bowl player they had drafted a couple of years ago, and they've always drafted defensive backs, Tom and Jimmy.
You know, even though these guys are free agents, a lot of them still haven't had to play special teams over the last couple of years in their college programs because if they're getting an invitation to the NFL, they still have star potential. So I bet you this weekend for Coach Hightower, the special teams coordinator, he's researching and searching for special team talent, unlike a lot of the position coaches out there. So if you have a guy that captures your eye because he's fielding punts easily in the open wind conditions, or you have a guy that's super fluid running downfield as a flyer on the punt return, on kickoff coverage, those are the types of things that a lot of these free agents can open eyes about and then maybe make a career out of because of it.
Jim, you were trying to beat DBs your whole career. Do you agree with Eric DaCosta?
Well, I think they're bringing in extra DBs because they had the 31st passing defense in the NFL. I mean, people forget that. Zach Orr took over as their DC. If you remember, they brought Dean Pease back mid-year as to help out because their secondary was just so misaligned in how they were playing. And part of the reason, too, is, you know, you got teams throwing the ball 50 times a game. When you go into camp now, you're going to want to load up with extra receivers and extra defensive backs because what happens is just the sheer volume of what the passing game is. Guys are going to pull a hamstring. You're going to need bodies available, which is going to give other guys opportunities to make the team if you are able to get some extra reps or things like that. So you will get a legitimate look just with guys going down, just with the sheer volume of plays where maybe a hamstring here or a quad there, and it's unfortunate that guys get hurt even in the OTAs, but that offers an opportunity for other guys that are signed to really come in and really fill those gaps and those voids when bodies start to become an issue.
All right, so you're both rookies. You're both showing up for meetings tomorrow bright and early. You're going to have some media session. You're going to be on the practice field. You're going to be working. Then you're going to get NFL eyes on you. You got your peers trying to take your jobs already. The tryout guys, the workout guys, essentially the mindset of a walk-on. What would be, for each of you, one or two things that you would work on as a rookie that you would concentrate on to get through just even this weekend, let alone what's coming with OTAs in the preseason so you're ready to go when the padded practices start? Tom?
I would want to be mentally prepared walking out of the meeting rooms because these coaches are going to install 5 or 6 plays. I want to make sure that they know that I know their assignments. They know that I can learn on the fly. They know that I can learn and absorb things quickly and understand what it means specifically to me and my assignment. And then I want to go out in the field and kind of feel the speed of the game and understand it's a whole new level of speed that everything you face back in your career. But like in college and like in the pros, when you come together as rookies and free agents, always know, man, that next step is the first time you're in a meeting with all the veterans, because now that speed of the game, the physicality of the game, and everything is going to be amped up even higher. So make sure that you can do what's required out of you in a rookie minicamp, and then just set yourself up for the progression of the overall preseason OTAs in the training camp.
Yeah, I'm with Tom. I don't think you come in with the mindset as, oh, I'm just going to come in, see, they're going to introduce all this material, and I'll just kind of go with the flow. I don't believe in that, and that's not how I approached it. I was big on first impressions mean everything, meaning like what Tom said. I'm going to come prepared. I'm going to show them that I know what they're asking me to do. I'm going to do it correctly. Granted, I'll make my share of mistakes, but I'm going to do it full speed. I'm going to take the talking points that they stress and really highlight those so that for the next day I'm better prepared for the next day and have a great understanding of the feedback that I get and the awareness of what's around me and what I need to do to succeed as a player and to get better. But I would be prepared, like what Tom said, especially on the coaching points of what I'm being asked to do, but make a good impression.
So, Jim, I have another question regarding, all these draft picks are slotted. So it's a relatively easy exercise to get signed. Some were signed, right after the draft. Everybody's almost signed here already. But for the first time ever, a second-round pick, 34th overall selection, the Iowa State wide receiver got a 100% guaranteed deal as a second-round pick. It's first time ever. Is that a significant development?
Well, yeah, I think so, because now other agents are going to ask for it, and in that slot, or the player that went before him or after him, that agent is going to ask for that. So yeah, it does set a precedent. It's kind of like, when Deshaun Watson signed his contract with Cleveland. All those owners groaned, specifically Steve Bisciotti of the Baltimore Ravens, because they all knew that was an outlier contract. They all knew it. The owners did. And it still is to this day an outlier contract, but they don't want things to set precedent, because now the other agents representing those other players, both before and after the Iowa State player, will be requesting that, and where they hope that it now becomes precedent where all that will be guaranteed. But typically it's only been the first rounders that it's been like that. And right. So, yeah, that is an anomaly, so to speak. Yeah,
Jaden Higgins. Great job by his agent to pull that off. So how do you feel about it,
He's
Tom?
going to make more than Brock Purdy, Jeff.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Coming into the league anyway, Brock's going to get his deal done. I'm fully convinced of that. All right, we'll discuss quarterbacks and all things quarterbacks, as a matter of fact, in our next segment, as we bring you more Bears Weekly with Jim Miller and Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak here on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
And this segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy with Jeff and Tom. Jim Miller, SiriusXM NFL Radio. Before we went to break, I wanted to talk about quarterbacks. CBSSports.com ranks the quarterbacks post-draft now. And Caleb Williams in at number 16, but with the caveat, perhaps no young quarterback better equipped for a seismic leap. I think we'd agree. Right, Tom?
Yeah, I 100%. And I don't think it's not only Caleb. I think it's Ben has a lot to do with it, how he's going to change the philosophical approach to where the quarterback is going to line up, the different receiving and running assets he has around him. And then Ryan bringing in a whole new host of free agent offensive linemen that are not going to have to be taught how to play in the NFL. They already have the experience. They understand how to play at an all-pro level. And, you get the next the next step up by Darnell and figure out this left tackle position. Yeah, I think Caleb has the opportunity and the ability to emerge as one of the better quarterbacks in all of the NFL. But it's going to take a little bit of time when you're inserting a new system terminology and what everything means together.
Yeah, I expect him to make a huge jump for all the reasons that Tom mentioned. I mean, one, he's insulated with a lot of good players around him. Two, no steps are going to be missed, like what happened with the last OC. Ben Johnson, he's hearing it from the horse's mouth, how he wants this offense run. And it will be run the way Ben Johnson wants it executed. And so I think Caleb will be very coachable from that standpoint because he is going to know what exactly is expected of him. There's not going to be any gray area, so to speak. So I think the coach is going to direct him with honest terms of what he needs at the quarterback position and what is expected of him. And so I think for Caleb, that's what he's got to focus on, is every day just getting better. He knows what is expected of him, what he's got to do, what his job entails, and there will be no stone unturned. Because I think I've mentioned this about John Shoop. John Shoop was one of the most detailed coaches I have ever been with. And I think Ben Johnson is very detailed, much like John Shoop was. He coached with him, and I personally believe what Ben Johnson is going to ask of Caleb Williams. And it's not a big ask. It's not a big ask. It's an attention to detail in every checked box before he approaches the line of scrimmage. He better go through that checklist, because that checklist is going to tell him everything he needs to do.
Also, CBS Sports, one reason for optimism for every team in the Bears, it was the hiring of Ben Johnson. You can feel his imprint, and I like that explanation because you can feel his imprint all over the building when you're in here. Like I am today, you could just it's just a different feel around here. But we know he's a tremendous architect of an offense and as a play caller, so that's going to help. And the imprint also in getting that interior offensive line settled down with those three new additions, drafting a slot like Luther Burden, at a minimum a slot, can play outside as well. And then you're not drafting Colston Loveland knowing you have Cole Kmet without having a plan for both. That's one thing Jerry Angelo always talked about, Tom and Jim, is that, if you're drafting, so what's the plan? What's the plan? We could talk about floors and ceilings all day long, but you got to have a plan. So there's a plan, and these are key pieces to that plan, as is Azie Trapillo.
All of us are familiar what was developed in Detroit, and you can't ignore that. And you look at the pieces that they brought aboard, the pieces they had in place, and how he used them with such efficiency. So when you talk about a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have those receivers that are his body type. When you talk about multiple tight ends in Detroit, you have them here in Chicago. When you talk about a backfield that's now going to be coached by Eric Bieniemy, might be one of the most exciting coaches as Antoine Randall, Al Harrison, the rest of the guys. But when you think about how important their role is to the overall success of how the offense runs, I'm really excited to see how Eric Bieniemy is interjected into this offense and how he can help these running backs grow and do everything that's required out of them in this offense.
All right, so next Wednesday we'll know the schedule. It comes out officially 7 o'clock. And just going through that list of the ranked quarterbacks, I don't care about that. But it's an interesting exercise. You rank them like teams, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it did spark some thought. So, again, those top 10 quarterbacks, there will be 9 games by the Bears against those top 10 quarterbacks. They have Jared Goff in there. They have Jordan Love. Whether you agree or disagree that they're top 10 quarterbacks on any quarterback list that you may have individually, Jim and Tom, but that's 4 games right there. But this is the angle that I'm going with you guys, and I want your reaction. So you're going to play Lamar Jackson in Baltimore. That's the first time he's ever going to play the Bears because the game against the Bears in Chicago when Matt Nagy was here, he was unable to play, so he never faced the Bears. And that was Tyler Huntley that played that game. The Bears lost that game, not because of Tyler Huntley, but they did lose that game. Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, Jaden Daniels in Washington, Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, and they have Brock Purdy as the number 10 in San Francisco. So the impact of a road game versus a home game against those quarterbacks against Bears defenses, how do you analyze that?
No road game is easy. No road game is easy because the support of the crowd can almost make your offense look dysfunctional at times. But then when you think about going to Las Vegas, it's going to be a Chicago Bear heavy crowd. All those other quarterbacks you mentioned are great quarterbacks. They're a good football team, but the Bears have the opportunity. They should have beaten Washington last time they played them in Washington. And the other games it's going to be super competitive. You and I were having some fun the other day talking about, okay, when they release the schedule, who do you want to see that first game against with the Bears? And I was saying I would like to see one of their most difficult home opponents week one because that's where the most uncertainty is about how they have you evaluated and the team coming into that type of environment that's just going to be out of control. So whether we're talking about quarterbacks on the road or who the Bears will open up with early, it's going to be a fun, couple weeks of topics here when they do release the schedule. But like you said, Jeff, every one of those quarterbacks are good, but they have a good football team. They're not just the quarterback.
Yeah, it's those are all tough quarterbacks to face. Those are good teams to face. But there is one anomaly, and that's Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson versus NFC teams. NFC teams don't know how to face him. All right, his record is literally like 30-4 versus NFC teams. Okay, so teams in division of the AFC North, they know how to play Lamar Jackson. Steelers have beat him. Obviously, Bengals have beat him. Cleveland's beat him. But outside of their conference, NFC teams have never seen a guy like Lamar Jackson, and that's why his record is so good. So to me, that's the one quarterback that really sticks out, that if you think you're prepared, you better over-prepare because he's a different cat. He's a different cat as a quarterback.
I know you guys like to talk about quarterbacks and stuff because that's the position that carries the high. But you think of Saquon Barkley, you think about Derrick Henry, Montgomery, and Jamar Gibbs, Josh Jacobs. So whatever position you want to pick out during the course of the season, you're going to have these, teams that have some of the better talent in all the NFL, and that's exactly what Eric Bieniemy is going to do here with this running back position and how to turn a position into the biggest complement of the quarterback and the offense that you can do.
Jim's not wrong. He's 24-4 against the NFC, and he's won his last 10 in a row against the NFC. So we'll pick that up on the other side, talking about divisions and whatnot. Good fun conversation with our guy Jim. All right, guys, take a break. Final segment coming up here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
This is Bears Weekly with the voice of the Bears for 24 years, Jeff Joniak on the Bears Radio Network.
Bears tickets go on sale Wednesday, May 14th, so mark your calendars. Get ready to roll. It's going to be a fun 2025. We'll get the schedule at 7 o'clock Central Time next Wednesday. Lastly, so many things to talk about, obviously, but the NFL never disappoints. And a tip of the cap, and I know, Tom, when I texted you, you went, wow. But I got to give it to the L.A. Rams organization because you always talk about, how the NFL maybe doesn't quite think about Hawaii as much anymore without the Pro Bowl there. But they're taking their minicamp, or veteran camp, on June 16th. They're flying their families to Maui, where you are right now. And then they're going to hold some workouts, but they're going to be in the community. Tip of the cap to Kevin Demoff, their president, and all in the name of those 2023 Maui wildfires, which I know hits your heart hard at Lahaina.
could you go to have the safest fields for an NFL team? You know, you could go to a high school here like Lahaina Luna. They have a beautiful sports turf field they just put in last year, and there's a field on the other side. So do it safely, do it right. Salute to Hawaii and the NFL.
Jim, did that surprise you?
Yeah, it did. You know, I know on the the main island there, didn't they tear down the stadium, Tom? Are they trying to rebuild the stadium on the main island?
It got condemned. Yeah. Basically, yes.
And I think hopefully, I think it's a great job by Kevin Demoff that you mentioned. I mean, those wildfires were devastating. I mean, absolutely devastating, as Tom can attest to. And I just think the NFL is very sensitive to those things, and they reach out and do everything they can.
All right, boys, nicely done. We'll talk to you next week. We'll go through the schedule as it becomes official. That'll do it for us, for our Bears Weekly and all our producers. Thank you for listening, everybody, on the radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. Stay tuned. Black and Abdallah are next. Good night, everybody.